LSU versus Ole Miss this past Saturday in Tiger Stadium, an outright thriller. Hell of a game, hell of an atmosphere in Baton Rouge. Now, we talked about this game on my other channel, our main channel, AYS Sports. So you can go check out the post game there. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this game. But LSU versus Ole Miss, LSU comes out with a win 29-26 in overtime. Garrett Nussmeier finds Kyron Lacey on a back shoulder fade route to end the ball game. Listen, this was what I talked about all week, and I know that Ole Miss fans on the SEC channel came after me pretty heavy this past week, saying, "Oh, Death Valley is not a tough place to play. LSU's not a good football team." And look, when you go back and you rewatch the game, there was one glaring thing from LSU and one glaring thing for Ole Miss. Let's start with the winner. Let's start with LSU. LSU played horribly offensively. They couldn't run the football. They had situations and times where their quarterback and Garrett Nussmeier was missing open targets. You know, I think of the Aaron Anderson double move in the end zone that was wide open that could have gone for 6. You wind up having to settle for a field goal. I think of the bad interceptions that he threw, the bad decisions he made on crucial early downs. But when it mattered most and when things came down to it, Garrett found a way to get the ball in his playmaker's hands. And the Aaron Anderson touchdown at the end of the game, which actually is the same play but flipped that he missed earlier, and you go in to score. There were not a lot of adjustments that Ole Miss and Pete Golding did defensively. They didn't really need to, because Garrett showed the propensity of putting the ball in harm's way. That's why he had 2 turnovers. But, man, he found a way. In the end, he found a way to finish, and Ole Miss allowed LSU in very big moments to stay in the football game. LSU's glaring weakness offensively at the current moment is the willingness to either, number 1, run the football, or number 2, stay with the run. They got away from it way too early. They ran for under 100 yards, only 84 yards on the day. But when, again, it felt like every time that LSU needed to make a crucial play, either offense or defense, they found a way to do it. And speaking of defense for LSU, this is not the same team. You know, we do this as fans. We do this as media. We do this as just overall fans of of just the sport, that coaching matters, and how good this defense has become, even with the absence of Harold Perkins, has been really good. Their linebacking play with Whit Weeks and Greg Penn has been phenomenal. LSU is 4th in the country in sacks, and went up against what is arguably a very average, if not below average, offensive line in Ole Miss. LSU took it to them. They had 6 sacks. And all of the years that Lane Kiffin has been in the SEC, no team has sacked an offense that he has orchestrated more than 5 times. LSU got to him 6. Braden Swinson had 2 sacks. Major Burns had that star role, had a sack and a half. Probably should have given him 2 sacks based off of, him being the one that made the play. LSU made the plays defensively when they needed to. They got 2 crucial turnovers. The interception was a crucial turnover by Jackson Dart that could have led them to getting 3 points. What they did in overtime, not being able to communicate, the bad decisions, the holding call, the false start, and Jackson Dart's inability to force some balls where he needed to. Pre-scoring was wide open on that last play, but that's neither here nor there. I think that LSU just made the more plays defensively down the stretch, and they stopped you when they needed to. Ole Miss was 11 of 22 on 3rd down, but a lot of those were big, crucial LSU stops. I mean, guys, 22 times LSU got in 3rd downs, and half the time they stopped them, I think, is a big deal in how the game played out. I think that LSU in crucial moments stopped the run. I know Ulysses Bentley, who's been on a milk carton the last couple of, or really just the whole season, finally gets a carry, goes for 50 yards and a score. You went away from him. And that is a travesty. That is an outright travesty. That's on Lane. I know that he was yelling at his running backs coach after Bentley scored. That's 100% on Lane Kiffin. In reference to LSU, man, it's the most LSU thing ever. You play the way that you do. You should not win the football game, but you're in that place at night and you find ways to win. But I'm going to tell you right now, and on our main channel that covers LSU, now that we're doing this and talking about the SEC, one thing that I have been saying for the last month, so many people have gone after this LSU defense and said, look, man, they're not that good. That's just not true. It's not remotely close to being true. Anybody who says a defense who goes from 115th in the country to now hovering around the mid-50s, that's a massive improvement, man. A massive improvement. And what they're doing getting after the quarterback, the things that they've been doing in the running game, they have been phenomenal in a lot of aspects of what they've done. Blake Baker is the highest paid defensive coordinator in the country, and he earned every single penny last night or on Saturday against Ole Miss. Let me turn it to Ole Miss here, because I think that, a lot of people are not giving LSU the credit that they deserve for the win, and a lot of people are looking at Ole Miss and saying, man, Lane Kiffin can't win the big game. They went into the season as a potential playoff contender. They slip up to Kentucky. They lose on the road in a tough environment against LSU, and now they got Georgia down the road. I mean, there's a chance that they might not win out, and the everything that they wanted through the season and making the playoff could be going by the wayside. Here's what I'd say. You have a massive weakness if you're Ole Miss. It's your offensive line. Now, they have done and did on Saturday, they did some good things in the running game. Thought they got away from it way too early. They trying to premiere Jackson Dart throwing the football when they're having success running the ball. And I think as much as it is that LSU made stops, I think that Ole Miss got away from what their bread and butter should have been, and that's running the football. Guys, this game's simple. I look at Ulysses Bentley. He had 11 carries, 107 yards, and a touchdown. I know 50 of that came on one play, but the other 57 on it came on the other 10 carries. So Ulysses Bentley is running the ball for over 5 yards a carry. I don't understand getting away from him. Now, there were some crucial third downs where he was in pass pro, and I think of the last play of the game where he gave up the sack. I mean, he got destroyed. Whit Weeks destroyed him and then sacked Jackson Dart. I understand not putting him in those situations. But you got away from what you needed to do. The O-line is not good in pass pro. I mean, LSU 100% showed you that. They showed you that. Now, 2 of the sacks I'll give you are not on the offensive line. Excuse me. It's not on the offensive line. Major Burns, the safety for LSU who had 2 sacks or a sack and a half, I mean, mainly that came off of that he took on a running back as a safety and obliterated your running back and got to Jackson Dart. But wide receivers at times couldn't get separation. I understand that Trey Harris going down is a big deal, and I've seen a lot of Ole Miss fans saying that, well, if Trey Harris doesn't go down, then LSU loses. The problem that I would have with that is that LSU was out with their top 2 targets. I mean, they had Kyron Lacy. Yes, Chris Hilton wasn't there. Xavier Thomas got banged up throughout the game. You had C.J. Daniels, the number 1 wide receiver in the transfer portal, that didn't play. So if you want to make the excuse of Trey Harris not being there, that's fine. But LSU was out of the same thing too. And where is Juice Wells? Now, I do think that Juice Wells had times where he can make plays, but this Lee kid went off. Now, later in the game, LSU would start bracketing him. They got a PBU late on an out route that they threw to Lee. But, I mean, I felt like if I'm an Ole Miss fan, I would feel like going back and rewatching the game that you were doing really good things in the running game and you got away from it. And when LSU needed to make stops, they did. Look, I don't think it's over for Ole Miss. I don't think it's over in the situation that they cannot make the playoff. This season has shown that it can be very chaotic and it can be very crazy. But, man, now you're in the ultimate uphill battle. And I don't know if you are in the situation where you can turn this ship around. I think you are who you are. I think your defense is the best unit, clearly. Offensively, you're struggling. I mean, the last 3 weeks that you've played SEC opponents, you've struggled on offense. 27 points against South Carolina, under 20 points against Kentucky. You go into LSU and you scored 26, but you needed overtime to get to 26. I mean, you got to kick a field goal. That shouldn't happen. Not with this offense and not with this team. And unfortunately for Ole Miss fans, you're going to hear the next couple of weeks and probably for the remainder of the year, is Lane Kiffin going to Ole Miss? Is Lane Kiffin going to Florida? And what I would tell you is I've already seen some of you on social media. I've seen some of you on our national show saying that, oh, we don't want Lane Kiffin. That's a lie. That's a bold-faced lie. Who are you going to go get? You're going to promote Pete Golding? I love Pete Golding. You're going to promote him? He's never been a head coach before in his life. Ole Miss fans, I'm going to tell you something that is a hard truth, whether you want to hear it or not. Your inability to recruit in high school is killing you. The lack of depth that you have in recruiting through high school is killing you. The portal giveth, the portal taketh away. And you not having established depth and you not developing guys inside your system is killing you. Want to know why the league kid is going off at wide receiver versus Juice Wells? It's because he's been there longer.